So I'm Carrie Lake, the creator of Animals of a New Earth podcast. And today I get to play with my beautiful friend, Katie Kangas, who is otherwise known as Dr. Katie Kangas. And she's a holistic veterinarian with some beautiful integrative perspectives for humans and their pets all at the same time. She and I have awesome conversations just, in life, and often are like, oh, we should have been recording that. And so I thought, why not record our conversations? So Katie, thank you for coming to play in this way with me. Would you like to say anything else by way of introducing yourself?
Sure. Thank you, Carrie. And of course, it's my pleasure to be here in this type of forum, even though I feel privileged that I get to chat with Carrie all the time and glean much of her wisdom that she shares with myself and my clients and my patients for that matter as well. But I can just add a little bit of my background. I have an integrative veterinary practice in San Diego, where Carrie and I are both located. And I see mainly dogs and cats, through my practice, but I incorporate a lot of different modalities within holistic practice, including things like nutrition and herbal therapies and acupuncture and all those kinds of modalities. And I really enjoy presenting people with a lot of tools and a lot of awareness about how to elevate the well-being of their pets and to really empower pet parents to know that they have that capability to support their pets to better health and better well-being. And then that all affects them too. And we all learn together. And part of my work that I keep evolving into feeling more and more rewarded as each year goes by is that I get to play with the people just as much with the animals, and including everyone in the awareness and in the benefits that we map out together. So it's been such a pleasure for me to sort of mesh my work with what Carrie does, and I keep learning more and more, and the energetic connection between animals and their people is becoming so much more obvious to me, just evolving so in so much awareness, how it's all mapping out and falling out in front of me as I work each day. And so this is what we're talking about together today. So it's pretty exciting for me.
I love it. And that's what's exciting to me too, as we know, because we talk about this all the time, but there is a growing awareness of the energetic connection between people and their animals. Like, there are more veterinarians who are looking into that, probably more holistic, right? And not so much conventional.
It's growing a little bit in the conventional too, but definitely more focused on in the holistic realm for now.
Yeah. And so that's like really super cool. But this is one of the things I appreciate about you, is your openness to going, wow, that connection is beyond doubt, beyond maybe science isn't studying it yet, but the empirical evidence that responds to their own unique human health. So I just want you to share, like, how you started noticing that trend. What did you start? What was your journey like as you started going pop, pop, pop? Whoa, look at this connection. Look at that connection. Can you just talk about that a little bit? And
sure.
And if there's examples in there, throw them in there,
Absolutely. Thank you. Yeah, I would say, I've been doing holistic work now for more than a decade. And the kind of work that I do, we get so deep in discussion about, in order to approach whole body health, we really want to talk about the physical, but also the lifestyle, the spiritual and the emotional aspects of what's going on in the animal's pattern. And of course, when you branch out beyond just the physical health and you start looking at all these other aspects, it really brings in what's going on with the family, what's going on with the pet parent and the entire family. And that gets into more deeper layers or more comprehensive layers than what most veterinarians would be doing, because they're focusing on just the physical piece of things oftentimes, and B, they have a very small amount of time to spend with their patients. And so when we're doing whole body health approach and holistic wellness, we're taking the time to get into these deeper, discussions and layers. And that allows me to see the patterns that are happening more between pets and their people.
That's one of the things I think so many people ask about in any realm of medicine is like, why don't I have more time to actually share what's going on, and how come nobody's actually listening? And how come people don't even know how to listen necessarily? Like, that just seems like a head scratcher when you really want to be helping people, but you're so, whether it's human medicine or veterinary medicine, you're just sort of tied that you have 14.62 minutes in order, for each person, in order to keep your practice profitable or whatever it might be. So, it's really a gift that you decided to operate differently.
Thank you. Yeah, it's well said. And, I think Western and conventional medicine, and just the way that the, medical field and industry works now, is, unfortunately, as you said, the time that doctors get to spend with their patients is so minimal. And the focus has become so narrow to, look at just the physical symptoms and think of a prescription that can apply, or a test to do to get more information to find a prescription that can apply.
Yeah.
And thank goodness, in even just my awareness over the last several years, I can see patterns of this changing. More and more people, for themselves and for their pets and for people they love and care about, they are looking for options that are more comprehensive and that do make more sense, more intuitive sense, to really include all of these things, to look at wellness rather than not how to necessarily just address a sickness or a symptom.
Well, yeah, because like a person walks into the clinic with their animal, and a lot of the time, or themselves, and a lot of times the doctor and the staff, they see a problem walking in, and then the mind goes, okay, here's the problem, here's the list of proof that this is a problem, and now I'm going to go see what I can apply to it, right? And like you were saying, intuitively, people are changing intuitively. More people are aware, like okay, there are others who are going to listen intuitively. And so I think a lot of people's hearts are thirsty to not only have somebody listen, but to actually hear and feel themselves expressing, like, I feel like my puppy dog is responding to my stress. And to give someone the space to speak that from their own world, that's healing in and of itself.
It's wonderful. Thank you for recognizing that and putting it into great words for me. That's exactly what I get to experience oftentimes, is just giving people the space to really think of all of the factors that are coming into their awareness of what might be affecting their pet. And that's where they start saying, wow, I really think that they're feeling my stress. And more people, I mean, almost surprisingly, are telling me that every day in my practice is, my pet is experiencing this, and I really think that a decent amount of this is coming from me. And I'm just so proud of people. Like, I almost get excited, like, wow, good for you, gold star. That you can even think about that. And it makes me happy that as this human collective, that we are now tapping in a little bit more to understand this. And some of the patterns that people talk about are just behavioral related. Like, they can tell that certain things that their pet are doing or is doing would be perhaps stress behaviors, but sometimes it's very physical matters too. Like, of course, digestion problems, a very good example, because most people understand that when you're worrying a lot or stressed a lot or anxious a lot, you will tend to have more gut problems, whether that shows up as indigestion or even, for people, a lot of times diarrhea and bloating and things like that. But any kind of digestive upset is very typical. And there are a lot of pets, especially dogs, because they're really key into, what's going on with their family and their owners. And they will have many of the exact same symptoms that people have. And people are really starting to recognize this. So it's even getting to very specific disease conditions like thyroid problems, or imbalances in all kinds of different organ systems, or perhaps even sharing the exact same cancer when it would be not a very common cancer, and someone in the household and a pet has it at the same time. So it's really quite remarkable when you start looking for these patterns or alignments that they're there.
Yeah, it's incredible. And there, some of that has been documented, hasn't it? Like some cases, like the cancers, that the human has this cancer, and then they have 5 dogs in a row that come up with the same cancer or something like that.
Mm-hmm. Yep. And that, there's so many experts that are now, writing about that, looking at that, trying to do a little more research into it, but really believing that a lot of, the pets are so energetic and they're so in tune with us that they take on a lot of our energy, and they're mirrors for us to mirror it back to us. And a lot of what they have is such a gift to us if we can just see that and accept that. And
if we can just not judge and blame ourselves,
Yes, thank you. That's exactly what I wanted to make sure people got, that because when this does come to light in discussion, oftentimes with my clients, a lot of times many people instantly are like, oh my gosh, and then they feel guilt, like,
right.
Oh,
I'm a bad person.
My pet is sick because of me, and I should have done this better, and I shouldn't have been in my state so that they're not in this state. And immediately I'm jumping in like, no, there's no guilt, there's no blame, but awareness is just such a great place to start. And then know that we're all in this together, and the pet is, here with us. But when we are able to see this and be aware of it, then we can start working on solutions together that affect both the people and the pet.
Yeah. Well,
and everybody benefits. So.
And this is the beauty of animals in our lives too. Going back to the heart of what this podcast is about, is that the animal kingdom is such a direct conduit to open human hearts. It's how many people will soften and open their heart in the presence of an animal where they wouldn't in the presence of just humans, right? And like you said, like, what an amazing gift that your puppy dog may develop this condition, because that's the only way you're going to actually be able to notice that there's something going on. Because we're so conditioned to ignore our own systems, our bodies, all of our feels, and to just go, oh my God, look at what my horrible body is doing to me, but I'm going to take care of my puppy dog. When really the puppy dog's body is saying, this is how much stress there is in the house. So if you want to actually help me, it's going to take reducing some of the stress in the house. And this all speaks to, asking people to listen differently, to symptoms, and listen differently to themselves and their animals. And I think the main change is, how can we just take a little bit of a break from judging that everything is either good or bad, and it's either my fault or it's double my fault. Like, that seems like the default, right? It's either my fault or twice my fault,
I love it, Carrie. And I'll just share with everyone, that's one of the many pieces of wisdom that I have received from Carrie, is dropping the judgment. And I love that, because most of us humans, of course, are so ingrained to judge good versus bad. And it
by default, right?
Right. It's such a level of growth to be able to let go of that,
Yeah.
extent.
It can be pretty scary. Like, when you're talking to your clients and stuff, and they're there because their dog has diarrhea, and you start talking to them about being kinder to themselves, how does that go? Like, what's that like?
It's very interesting. And I was going to mention that's a perfect question to sort of segue into a thought that I wanted to share, is that so many people, when you said, what a gift for us to be able to see this in our pet, to reflect, maybe there's something that we can do for them that will also help us. And the interesting thing is so many people will ignore what's going on in their own patterns, whether that's emotional, physical, or whatnot, but they'll identify something in their animal and they're so deeply care for their pet that they want to immediately do something to help them. And the interesting thing is so many people bring their pets to me and they will spend their last dollar on helping their pet, but they won't give that same self-care to themselves. And so many times I do have this discussion with people is, it's important to care for yourself too. But a lot of times people ignore what's going on with themselves and just try and help their pet. So this is such a wonderful way to bring them together and help them. Yeah.
Yeah. And so the people that I get to work with too, a lot of times people will call me and say, okay, my cat has anxiety. Can you help my cat? Or my dog has so much anxiety, she shakes. Can you help my dog? And of course the answer is yes, let's go for it. And then I share with them the tools that work, and it all has to do with how they manage themselves and their own body. And they're like, and that's going to help my dog? And I'll go, yeah, that well, give it a try, And they're like, wow, because that might help me too. And it's, I know, but what's funny and beautiful and just so human is even when you put it right out in front of people, sometimes even then it's still hard for them to hear, that when you pay attention to how you breathe, that's going to help your dog relax. And, putting things very, very plainly. I think what I'm trying to say is it's worth it to have as much compassion as exists on the planet for people who show up with animals full of anxiety and difficulty, because it's so hard on us to see our loved ones in distress. So hard that often we do ignore our own distress, and it deserves compassion. When people are too stressed out to see straight, but they're trying to help someone else, and you'd really like to have them receive some help and they just refuse to receive help.
Right.
Yeah, it's a beautiful realm to be a compassionate human in that holistic way,
Yes, I agree. And I feel like that this is just on the brink of people understanding that more, because I think classically, most humans don't perceive that compassion for ourselves as well as everyone else can lead to these greater steps of wellness, and most people, we've really had a disconnect in that. And people would tend to prioritize anything their pet would need over what they need and never give themselves the same compassion. Yeah.
So do a lot of your clients then come back and say, oh, your advice for Sparky actually inspired me to change what I do for myself? Do you get to have that dance?
All the time.
Yeah.
All the time. It makes my work so rewarding. It really does. And I literally say thank you prayers all the time for the fact that I found my way, my path. I started in conventional medicine, like all that's, the way we're trained. And I did conventional approaches for 15 years before I started doing holistic. And I am so grateful that my path has led me to such levels of recognition and contribution because of how this is all opening up.
Will you talk about your puppy dog that helped you transition from conventional medicine to holistic? And then let that also sort of segue into what's different now from the 10 or 12 years ago when you transitioned into holistic medicine. Like, how far have you come, you know,
Mhm.
and what
Thank you.
has changed.
Yeah.
Tell the
Yeah.
story. Tell the story.
Fun to think about. And certainly my entryway into this story is my dog. This would be back in 2005. I had a black lab mix named Asti, A-S-T-I, Asti. And at the time she was about 14. And I was doing conventional medicine. I was actually a shelter veterinarian at the San Diego Humane Society and SPCA. And I had done general practice prior to that and other things as well. And my doggie started having older age issues with mobility. And she was getting very weak in her hind end and, you know, kind of some lower back issues. And it was getting to the point where she would knuckle her back feet and fall if she was trying to, you know, defecate, or certain things getting up and getting down became very difficult. And started searching for options for her. She was very sensitive to medications. There was things that just either didn't work for her or caused more side effects than benefit. And I'd always been interested in holistic medicine, but I'd never known anybody who did it, really never had any experience with it. Took a couple little, you know, courses of things here and there, but didn't have any rooting in it at all. And my dog Asti inspired me, and, you know, I say pushed me, but my own pushed me to, gave me enough incentive and motive to take that leap and look and really.
We're willing to do it for our critters, right?
Exactly. Yes. Same, right? And so yeah, I prioritized, you know, it became a whole new priority, is I have to figure out other options for my dog, because the kind of options that I'm trained in just are lacking in this scenario. And so indeed, I found Dr. Keith Weingart, who turned out to be my mentor, and he's a fabulous holistic veterinarian, and he relocated from San Diego since between then and now to Portland, Oregon. But I worked with Keith for years, and he encouraged me and you know, really supported me to grow and pursue the training. I took Asti to him, by the way, for probably a year and a half before I was trained. And the results that happened for my dog are just nothing short of miraculous. I mean, at the time for me, I'd never seen anything like that, especially with natural tools. And I was so inspired that I'm like, I have to be able to do this for other animals, for my patients. I can't know that this type of healing can exist and not be able to offer it or be able to share it. And so I put in my resignation at the Humane Society, and I went down to Florida and got trained at the Chi Institute in first initially acupuncture, and then more in advanced acupuncture and herbal and chiropractic therapy. And then very much over those years, to answer some of your questions, what's different from then and now, is I really delved into a lot of nutrition and how food medicine is really the core of, you know, health in so many aspects of how we feed our body and our pets' bodies. And that can, you know, just be such a foundational approach to health. And then over these last few years, the energetic component and the emotional component and the spiritual component have now become so much more prominent in my awareness and approach as well. So that's really how things have evolved from initially things like acupuncture and herbs, and then nutrition, and now more even into the energetic and vibrational piece of wellness. So it's such a fun evolution. And of course, every day in everybody's lives, we're always learning. I mean, every day is an opportunity to learn. But I just feel like of course, it's my dharma, so I'm thrilled about it, but I'm so happy because I feel like I'm learning so much every day that I then get to share and amplify through, you know, all species. And I just love going to work because I get to affect and contribute and learn from animals and people every day. I just love it.
Yeah. So I want to ask you something I don't think we really talked about before, and that is, like, what is it like then when you have a pet client or a people and the animal's body is just not responding to holistic treatment? You know, like, how do you approach that? Like, if you need to, when do you decide to send them back to conventional things? And what does that feel like to you? What is it like, you know, if the animal's just not responding, and, you know, where do you go with that? I don't know that we've really talked about that, because I know the responses, you know, the vast majority of the time, the animals just get brighter and brighter and brighter, but there are times when it's different than that.
Right. Yeah, there are. And luckily they're minimal in the, ratio of what I get to see. The vast majority of patients, and usually what I share with people when they say, what can I expect? What can I expect when I follow the recommendations that you're recommending for my pet? And my general answer is I'm always optimistic that you're going to see positive results in your pet. I just don't know to what extent and to how quickly, because everybody's different. Every situation is variable. You know, the level of illness, how deep it is, how advanced it is, can be very, very different from patient to patient. And then how people or animals respond to any one given treatment or method also be really variable. So I would say the majority of times when pets aren't responding, it's because people aren't staying consistent or committed to the process.
Yeah.
And they either give up, or they get frustrated, or they get sidetracked. Life happens and things are going on with family and everything else. And the good intentions of, I want to do this, this, and that take a little bit of effort for my pet, may sort of just get lost in the mix. And Western medicine generally has faster answers. Now, they don't always work either. There are a lot of people that come find me because Western medicine has not produced, successful outcomes for their pet. But in general, a lot of things in Western medicine will at least work temporarily, and they oftentimes will work faster than what we're doing for true healing, for getting to the true foundational, changes that the body needs to truly heal. That takes time, and it takes commitment, and commitment to the process. And so I like to portray for people that it's not going to happen overnight, and it will build on itself. You get a little layer of improvement, and then it's set up for the next layer of improvement, and so on and so forth. And the vast majority of the time, thank goodness, people are just jazzed about what they see for their pets. And oftentimes people tell me, I need to find a doctor like you for myself. So that is really exciting. Yeah.
And luckily there's more and more of those, the human doctors available holistically.
Right.
But see, so this is what I love is humans are conditioned that if there's something wrong, you go to a doctor, you get a diagnosis, and you have some chemical that fixes it. Mm-hmm. And there's, like you said, there's a place for that, like prednisone. How many people know the word prednisone, right? Like, that's the first thing. I don't know what it is. Here's some prednisone, and not to anybody's discredit, it's just common, And so there are times when prednisone is like the right thing to do, just to interrupt a reaction and then feed the body differently or whatever. But listening to you, what I just love is everything, your approach and how you listen. And listening is not about diagnosis. It's helpful, right? But it's like a different way of speaking to address things holistically. Yes. Like, just the way you talk about these things is different than a conventional vet. There's a different tone, a different pressure, an absence of pressure. And that's just something that's important for me to talk about and bring out into the light, was to acknowledge that it's okay to pay attention to how it feels when you're talking to your doctor in this clinic, and when you're talking to a different kind of doctor in a different clinic, because you'll feel pressure. Like, the clients are going to feel pressure. Like, say they just came from the emergency vet. That's a very different environment than Katie Kangas's office,
Mm-hmm.
And it's important to me to like give people for lack of a better word, permission to be aware of how it feels and let how it feels be important information,
Right.
because your animals feel you being full of pressure and fear, and they're going to be like, okay, what are we afraid of? You know, okay, I'm afraid too, what are we afraid of? And it's worth it to give people that space and that encouragement and that empowerment to just say, how this feels to be in this office makes a difference. It matters. It's important. It's just as important information as sometimes even the pieces of paper hanging on the wall, you know?
Mm-hmm. Yes. Thank you. And thank you for, saying that and recognizing that to be such an important piece. And I am fortunate that so many people do comment on how it does feel to be there.
It's like a living room. I mean,
yeah, it's a calming environment. We're sitting on the floor, there's furniture for the, animals and floor
and humans.
furniture.
There is furniture for humans.
What's that?
That you do have furniture for humans, just
exactly. But it's just cute because I have just the other day, a client says to me, her dog jumps up on the couch and she was, sitting on the couch and she goes, oh, is it okay if my dog's on the furniture? And I'm like, oh, of course the furniture's for him, but you can be on it too.
That's
you
great.
can be up there too. It's fine.
It's a multi-species couch, right?
It's a wonderful calming environment, and that allows the pets not only to feel their level of calmness, but people to feel calmer, and then that gets shared obviously back in both ways from them to their person and back and forth. And the other thing that you mentioned that I think is worthy of expanding on a little bit is when you said, the diagnosis, and I really try to some extent to explain to people to not, or to encourage people to not hang on a label diagnosis so much, because that does add a lot of stress, people, and then Dr. Google, and then you go look everything up and it's like, and it just adds to that sort of fear level of, you read every little detail and it just compounds on there. And, one of the things, and albeit Western and conventional medicine can have so many helpful, pieces to it. And the thing I like to say to a lot of my clients is, I don't need a Western diagnosis label in order to be of value to you and your pet. There are so many things that we can identify together through discussion and through, visual and examination of the pet, and a lot of it from discussion, that don't even matter what the diagnosis is. And sometimes when somebody's given a label of a diagnosis, you feed into that and you create more of it. Stepping back from that and just realizing that the body is a whole, and it doesn't have to be assigned a label of a diagnosis either. So I really love to, especially when it comes to things like autoimmune disease, where Western medicine, they'll come from another veterinarian. You talked about how, an emergency clinic setting or some other setting is very stressful. Well, they get this sort of bomb dropped on them. Your pet has XYZ. It's lifelong. You're never, they get all these.
Yeah. You're screwed for life.
Exactly right. They have IBD, inflammatory bowel disease. They're going to have it for life. You're going to, you're going to be managing this forever, that sort of thing. And they come to me and I'm like, whoa. We don't need to necessarily buy into that whole structure there. Inflammatory bowel disease is very broad label, just means there's inflammation in the gut. Most everybody has some level of inflammation in the gut at this point. Doesn't mean that it's lifelong. It doesn't mean that you have to take on this label assignment and all of the details that fit with it that are on the internet and everywhere else that you'll get told. And if we can just view the body as a whole and start adding our tools in and our things that we can do to make adjustments, and then things heal, and then poof, the label can go away.
It's amazing.
And I get to see that all the time, and people are like, just the other day, McLaren, the Scotty was in, who is such a wonderful story, but yeah, he was, labeled lifelong disease, and he's thriving and just made my day. So
tell the story a little bit about the Sheltie. You and Amanda.
McLaren.
That's McLaren?
That's McLaren. I just saw the other other day. I took pictures with him. And I believe McLaren is 12 now, but I'm not
He was
certain.
like at death's door, right? His body
Yeah,
was
so
really
2 or 2.5 years ago, he was seeing a internal medicine specialist, and he had inflammatory bowel disease, and then had numerous other conditions that were associated with that, from liver disease to all kinds of stuff going on for his body. And an internal medicine specialist who is highly trained in expertise told McLaren's daddy, Western medicine is out of, I mean, they did everything for this dog, and he was getting sicker and sicker, and he was losing weight. He was extremely thin, couldn't hold, had no appetite, didn't do well with food, and was really just declining, despite thousands of dollars worth of care, thousands of dollars worth of diagnostics and procedures and all this stuff. And internal medicine specialist said to McLaren's daddy, I'm sorry, Western medicine is out of options. I don't know anything else that I can do for your dog. So I'd really like to refer you to Dr. Katie Kangas for trying some holistic care. And so Larry comes to find me, McLaren's dad, and has no reference of holistic anything. He's never done anything for himself or any other pets. And we start working together. And the story that unfolded is just knock your socks off. And it's just a wonderful testament to what can truly happen when everybody's desires and allowances join forces and move forward through this kind of territory. And it's been fantastic. McLaren is now off. He was on 11 medications when he came.
oh my God. Wow.
And he is off all medications. He got to the point where we're like, okay, Larry, now he's getting chubby, so you got to not let him because he was so used to him being so underweight. So he got so excited when he was gaining weight, and now he's ideal weight. He's happy, he's vibrant, he's got so much vitality, and he was licking my face in the practice the other day, and it's just
So great.
Yeah.
It's because that's real life, right? It's like you give life what it requires, and it restores itself. And it takes some skill and a lot of experience and open-heartedness and creativity and flexibility to sometimes to put together what works. It's like that willingness to just listen vulnerably of, okay, this isn't, let's re-steer it. Okay, now let's re-steer it again, which is completely different than Western medicine that says, which code in the book tells me which medicine to apply, and then we'll see what happens,
Right.
It is a vulnerability, I think, to go a holistic route.
Yeah.
Like, I have a friend in Australia, and her kitty, Merlin, he's my good friend, actually. He was diagnosed early last year, I think, with, kidney disease and kidney failure. He was 19, maybe the end of his 18th year, early 19th year. And so, kidney kitty at that age, generally people will just say, oh, well, there's nothing you can do. Just stop feeding him protein, give him these medications, and, I'm sorry, but his hair's going to fall out, and he blah, blah, blah. Well, my friend, bless her heart, was like, oh, no, I don't think so. She I don't remember, I know she has holistic vets, she's an energy worker too, but she started, giving him the proper supplements, just herbs. She kept feeding him plenty of protein, raw food, and a combination of raw and, of course, fancy feast, because sometimes that's what cats are willing to have, But here he is now. I think he turns 20 very soon, and he's chubby. He actually gained weight after all of that. And, again, it's not that that's the perfect cocktail for every cat or every dog, but it's really worth it to ask different questions and to ask what works for my animal, which, like you're saying, is different than what does the diagnosis say every single cat is going to experience when the blood work looks like this. So it's worth it. It's so worth it to listen differently. I know that's my whole spiel on the whole planet, but I want to ask you you, because I haven't asked you this either. You're going to be presenting 3 different talks at the AHVMA conference coming up, which is the American Holistic Veterinary Medical Association. What are your topics? Like, what are you excited to share with other vets at this point?
Interesting that I have started developing a niche of interest and now sharing in the topic of toxins and how we're exposed and our pets are exposed to so many things that do cause degeneration in the body and all kinds of different interruptions in the body. And I have spoken on anything from electromagnetic field toxicity, so all of the cell phones and the Wi-Fi and the cell towers and everything around us is definitely energetically creating problems, and it is literally called a toxin to the cells cellularly. And so I've spoken about that before. And then most recently, I've delved into the importance of glyphosate toxicity, which is Roundup. Monsanto's Roundup is the most well-known weed killer that the main ingredient is glyphosate. And unfortunately, glyphosate has become very ubiquitous in our environment globally, but especially in the United States. I think we use, the highest levels of glyphosate, but it's everywhere.
It's very convenient, and
yes.
they make it that way.
Yes, it's been sprayed. It's being sprayed, of course, on numerous crops, and most people are familiar with GMO crops being, having Roundup and glyphosate. But the problem is that non-GMO crops, many of them actually have more glyphosate than the GMO crops, which are traditionally the corn and the soy, and now there's many others like beets and alfalfa and cotton and so on. But non-GMO crops are actually sprayed at the end of the season, which means the glyphosate levels are actually higher than the corn and the soy that are sprayed in the beginning of the season because they're tolerant to Roundup, to the weed killer. These other plants that aren't tolerant, they use it as a desiccator and a dryer to ripen them and get them ready for harvesting.
I didn't know that.
But the very interesting link, which we can bring up in this forum, is that many of the crops that are the highest in glyphosate are some of the biggest in dog foods these days, especially the grain-free dog foods, which I'm all about. I, just like you mentioned earlier for this kitty, I'm very supportive of raw diets for the vast majority of pets. Not every single pet thrives on the same diet, but that's generally my encouragement, or at least get to the freshest diet that works for that pet. But there's been a lot of information on grain-free foods, or a lot of misinformation, I should say, on grain-free foods lately. And one of the links that is showing up that is lesser known as of yet is the fact that these crops like oats and peas and lentils are some of the highest glyphosate containing foods, and they are in high quantities in many up-and-coming pet foods. And what happens is glyphosate is starting to, it does cause, the levels of glyphosate that we're all exposed to causes leaky gut, and it interrupts the intelligent barrier of the gut lining, and then all these things can go haywire in the body. Right. More autoimmune disease, more problems. And the whole grain-free issue is because the gut's breaking down, the taurine doesn't absorb well, it doesn't have the same bioavailability right, and so forth. So it's this whole intricate thing, but it's affecting everyone, and leading to all kinds of things, brain diseases and other things, and of course cancers. So glyphosate is a big topic for me, and I'm talking 2 hours on that out of the 3 for the AHVMA.
Cool. And so how then do other vets respond to the information the way that you share it? Because other vets are provided misinformation as well, aren't they?
Yeah.
And there's a lot of veterinarians who are not well educated on all of this. So when you share, you're talking information and the way you connect all the dots for that, how do other vets respond to you?
Well, interestingly, most conventional veterinarians are probably not accessing that information, because a lot of what I speak about is really still sort of embraced by the holistic veterinary community. So of course, this particular conference, there will be, it's a very large conference, but it's still all the holistic veterinarians, where the conventional veterinarians are still they read that FDA headline on the grain-free foods not being good, and now assuming that dogs need to eat grains to keep their heart healthy. And the information in those circuits is not as readily accessible yet. So hopefully with, me sort of in this, initial stages of it, I can be a contributor to that getting to other levels as we go forward. So that'll be great.
I love that. Well, and just like a lot of things, I guess it's the whole grassroots approach to life, where you put the information out and it ripples out so that people ask their professional providers new questions. To me, that's the most exciting thing, is rather than wait for the humans in a professional setting to have all the answers, we have this ability to educate ourselves, to read articles and to be curious, like holistic, what the heck is that? I'm going to go read about it. And it just is it's a different way of being, and that different kind of curiosity, the different kind of creativity is what is contributing to people who walk in and say, could it be my anxiety having an effect on my dog? And so in all of this, I just celebrate the people asking new questions. Like, it's not going to work to hate humanity in order for animals to have a better life. Like, it just doesn't work. And so
embracing everyone is what's going to get us to better levels.
Well, and the animals pretty much think we're all right to hang out with.
Good point.
People will say, oh, that dog.
As screwy as we can be, they still like us. They love us.
It's just true. There's tons of evidence. We don't even need science, right?
That's the beauty of their teachings to us. One of the beauties of their teachings to us is them having that unconditional love and being present and being in the moment and helping us to get there better.
Yeah, and it's such a gift, the presence of companion animals, and of course every species has the contribution to touch people's hearts, right? Whether it's in art or sport or just their existence, their beauty. But these companion animals, like, you can't tell them not to love you. People try, it doesn't quite work, does it? They keep showing up loving you, even if sometimes it's showing up with a limp saying, will you help me? And there's this is, again, I've said it a million times, I'll keep saying it, but a lot of what I love about what you share with people and the way you share is because it's offering people a way to include themselves without killing themselves for being a bad person. And that is revolutionary to so many people. So that's just what I appreciate. And it comes very much from my own life of having to figure out how to not hate humans myself, right? When you go on that journey of like, okay, show me a way to love humanity the way horses love humanity. Like, how do horses keep giving when people hit them? Like, I want to learn that. And I think this is what's exciting to me about the entire holistic conversation, and that we can even do this, is more people are getting curious. How do animals keep giving to us? Do they actually love us, or is it only because I give them freeze-dried lung? Like, no, they actually do. And sometimes that love looks like taking on some of the stress of their people to helpfully make their people's lives a little bit more heartful, help people have just a little bit more opportunity to feel their own hearts.
Love it.
That's what I love too. Is there anything else that you would love to say or share or ask before we wrap up for this hour that just went by in a blip?
It did go by really fast. I don't think so. I just want to thank you, Carrie, for just being such a leader in this type of awareness for everybody, and creating this forum and a way to contribute to people, and for asking me to be part of it. So it's really, really a pleasure. And it was fun for me, even as you asked these questions, to kind of put things in a perspective that I haven't even really thought of in such a demonstrating way. So I really appreciate you sort of putting that together for me almost at the same time as for everybody else.
Oh, my pleasure. And it's an honor. You know, I feel like the luckiest kid in the world, because like some of my friends are the most amazing people, offering, like, you don't even see it in yourself, you know. People are offering a presence, and just by the way that you function in the world, it's like leading by example, with the curiosity and the passion to learn more and to listen to people. I mean, there's a head scratcher right there, you know. But I just feel like the luckiest kid in the world, that I can just call my friend Katie and say, hey, do you want to do this with me? Because, you know, for people who don't know yet, Katie she's asked to do lots of talks and write lots of papers and contribute to lots of things. And so I'm just honored that you're my friend. So thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Ditto.
All right, love.
Thank
We'll
you.
talk to you soon, another time. And thank you again for sharing your wisdom and guidance. And you're awesome.
Thank you. Same to you.
I look at you with an open heart and see who you really are. No need to find the words for this faith and grace, but don't doubt it, trust the smile on my face. You come to me as a kindred soul who's never been alone. Through dark, uncertain days when you were asking why, I have been the light on the other side. There's a way to live this life, to stop doing and start being, and understand the meaning of the wonder all around. With your spirit in the air and your feet on the ground, the smallest step on the hardest road will lead you where you're meant to go. Surrender to this moment and let yourself be free. The truth is that your story starts today.